Hey everyone, welcome to our podcast Magical. This is the second episode. Actually, it's the first one because the one we recorded last was more of a pilot episode. So, this is the first episode, and I'm really excited to have Milena with us. She is our designer, and we've been working together for about 8 months now, I think, right?
Yep.
We're going to talk about the branding launch that we have actually later today. But when I think this podcast airs, it would be probably about a week or two into it.
Yeah.
And but maybe how about you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you got to Magic Bell? What has that journey been like?
Okay. My name is Milena, but I go by Mila. I've been working as a freelance illustrator and a graphic designer and a tattoo artist at some point for more than a decade now, mostly doing freelance, but also working with agencies, with editorials, whatever came my way, pretty much. We've been working on the blog illustrations with Magic Belt. I think we started in January. So yeah, it's been almost 10 months. And at some point, I think that was shortly before summer, I joined Magic Bell as a designer. So yeah, it's been very exciting. I do have a little bit of input when it comes to our UI, but mostly doing branding. Whatever you find about us on the internet, that probably something I crafted. And yeah, we've been working very hard on releasing our new website. It has not been my solo work, absolutely not. We've worked with an amazing agency. However, I've managed to put some illustration input, and maybe this is something we can talk about.
Absolutely, yeah. I think we're sort of unique. We're not the only ones certainly, but we're sort of unique in those early stage startups that are paying so much attention to our branding, to sort of this distinct visual identity, uh, doing custom illustrations, custom artwork. So definitely, let's dig into it. I think let's start by like why did we approach this redesign, and also like at least how my mindset has shifted about it. So I remember that once we raised some seed money, one of our angel investors, Christian Reber of Pitch, who's obviously like a very smart entrepreneur, very design savvy, he said to me that I should spend now on improving our visual brand. And honestly, I thought we didn't need to. Like, I liked what we had. I knew that it could be a lot better. But I can also come from this bootstrapping background where you're always thinking of the ROI. Like, what is this? Does it have an immediate ROI? And so I definitely pushed back a bit and said, no, maybe we don't need it. But then I also talked to some other developers that I respect, and like Max, who's again our angel investor. He mentioned as well that it really helps with hiring now too. People expect to see a polished brand, and I think at that point I realized that I'm probably still sort of stuck in the Unix world where it's like functional over visual and the content over the presentation. And I'm glad I kind of upgraded my mindset. And I remember having many discussions with you as well, right? So
Yeah.
maybe you can talk about it.
I remember those, yeah, very well, because obviously the beginning of work with Magic Bell, I was doing just the illustrations only. But after I joined as a designer, I really felt that maybe this is the time to put just a little bit of my input into what Magic Bell is becoming, and because I think it's still becoming a brand. And I think when you look at how saturated the market is, even though what we do, maybe we don't have that many competitors, but when you think of SaaS products, there's an incredible saturation. So if you go on social media and if you keep scrolling on LinkedIn or Twitter, or if you even go on Instagram, you need that initial pop, because your attention lasts only for 2-3 seconds and then it's gone. And I feel no matter how great of a developer's tool Magic Bell is, we needed that additional pop to make people stop and read about what we do. And I did put a lot of effort into creating a unique blog illustration style, but obviously this is not what builds the brand from A to Z. So then we have to think about the logo, we need to think about the website, we need to think about everything that we post on every possible channel. That's even an email signature that should stand out. So at some point I think I've managed to convince you that maybe it would be a good idea to pay someone who knows their craft and will be able to just, pretty much that's the right word, to craft something that we can use to build our product. And I remember initially you asked me if I would like to do it. And as much as I do have some web design background, I mean, I knew how to use Figma properly back then, but I remember thinking, and I think I told you, this may not be the best idea. I think you want to hire someone who does that for a living, because they know every nook and cranny and they know how to craft something that makes you stay on the website. And this is what we want.
Also, I think it's not about knowing web design. I think it's also about having the process like the agency did with us, and the agency is called Overnice. We recommend them. We really love working with them. I think we had like a 4-hour branding workshop, like 2 hours and 2 hours.
Yeah.
And even for that, I was very cynical. I definitely thought it's almost like that scene from Silicon Valley where there's this, like, what animal would it be? And so I was expecting that. But then, I was actually surprised by just how much of our personality or approach to work or sort of core philosophies they were able to bring out before they even like went back to the drawing board. I feel that exercise itself at least convinced me that we are going to have something great as an outcome of this exercise. So, and I've been an entrepreneur for 15 years now, and I've launched several websites and several redesigns. And now looking back, I think I was actually it was the wrong expectation to expect my design team to also be able to come up with the branding. I think once there is a brand, there is a style guide, there is a logo, they can take that and build interfaces and landing pages. But I think I definitely had that kind of unrealistic expectation that they can come up with a brand aesthetic. I don't think even the best brands like Stripe or Intercom do it in-house to start off with.
Absolutely. I feel this is a common misconception about the designer's work and designer's job, really. It's almost like it's a bit of a silly of an example, but if you think of someone who works within IT and you expect them to fix your computer, it's not exactly how it works. It's just a different skill set. And this is exactly how it works with designers. And I think at some point, especially, you want a designer who's just really good at this one certain skill, because it's pretty obvious that this person had mastered it and will deliver something very polished and just a great outcome of their work. I think it's also very important to mention, as we were approaching Overnice, they had struggled with something I had struggled with as well. As when you sent me the Magic Bow website in January this year, I felt a bit clueless as of what Magic Bow actually is. And I felt this is what they understood from the beginning, that the website I can use the past tense now, the website we had as we launched the new one, as much it was a great website, but it did not convey the message as well as the current one. And this is what the guys from Overnice, they had definitely put a lot of work and a lot of research into understanding what the product is, what it offers, who could potentially use it, or who could be potentially attracted to it, and all these little hints and ways to find the perfect way to craft the website. They absolutely nailed it. They knew what they were doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's an important point to mention as well. It's like you probably don't want to invest that time maybe on day one, unless of course you're a serial entrepreneur, you raised a bunch of money, you exactly know what you're doing. I think for me, having built an MVP, acquired maybe 10, 15 paying customers and a dozen other customers, I think I had enough clarity going in that, because the first website was almost like you said, it was a bit vague because we ourselves didn't know. But then also it just never evolved. So I'm kind of glad we did that exercise. But I do think there's a right point in your journey where maybe you can do it and build something that will probably stick around for a while. If you do it a little bit too early, then you might have to redo it.
Absolutely.
Let's move on to just sort of like the what the brand means to us. Like brand is just such a fuzzy word, right? It's
Yeah.
thrown around a lot. Uh, to me, brand is something. It's the sort of like the experience that somebody has interacting with your company, like what they feel. Does it make them feel? Does it bring joy to them? Does it make them feel confused? Does it make them feel safe? And I'm curious to hear, first of all, what you think of the brand. What is a brand? And then how we would define our brand. I think, like, oh, when I said a person, right? Like, if the brand was a person at a party, who would that person be? And I think
Yeah,
all of
yeah,
us actually had very similar answers to that in the team.
yeah.
So maybe we can approach that a bit.
I actually remember my answer, and I feel it answers your question very well, because I remember saying that if you go to a party and you meet the this very skilled developer who's also very design oriented, but doesn't really know how to combine these skills together. As you know, like we like to say that we have these hardcore backend developers who don't care about the design at all. That's not Magic Bow, because I mean, on one hand, it's a perfectly very well crafted design developers tool, but I think right from the beginning there was this sort of romance with the design, with the visual side of it, because when you think about how the product works as well, as the first thing you see, like the current sort of dashboard of Magic Bell, is the design customization. So it has been very important from the beginning. So as for the brand, I think it pretty much sums up your first impression of the product or of the person, as we would like to think of the brand as of the product as of the person, is your first impression, how it makes you feel. Yeah, I think that's very well said.
Yeah, and I think I don't remember exactly my answer, but I think it was something along the lines of this person at the party that always has interesting stories to tell. And so you hang out with them and you feel that, wow, they have just so many cool stories. And but you don't feel that those stories are all fake. They're probably a little bit massaged up, but they're certainly coming from a place of actual experience and having lived life. Yeah. And I think for us, what was extremely important was also to balance bringing out trust and sort of reliability with this element of fun and joy. Because in some ways, I mean, it's interesting when you say we don't have a lot of competitors, and we don't, but in the broader notification space, which includes marketing tech and notifications, just push notifications, we actually do. But a lot of it just seemed like it's very one directional, sort of a little bit exploitative in terms of just getting a lot of value out of the user. So we sort of wanted to, I think, bring out this vibe a little bit of, it's a fun brand, it brings certain joy back to your day, it's aspiring to do that. And I think that's probably also an unintentional side effect, is that now we have this brand, I feel more inspired to live up to it.
Absolutely.
So
So do I.
what are your thoughts on that?
I think Magic Bell as well should come across as someone who wants to sell you, well, introduce you to an idea that you thought that you maybe didn't need, but then you realize, of course, this is what I have been looking for my product for such a long time. Sending emails, that's really in the past. It's not how you want to interact with your users. So having this little bell with an inbox where you can get in touch with your user, that seems like the perfect solution of how to first improve your product, how to improve the workflow of the user, and how to make sure that you just keep building the best product there is. And I think for us as well, I was not on the team back then, but I think for Magic Bow to be seen and to be appreciated by a company like Pitch, which is both just an extremely good product, but also so design oriented and so well crafted. That was I think a very obvious and a very clear sign that you are onto something. You're onto creating something that great products actually do need.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think we would have to record another episode on the whole, like, how did we sign up pitch and how influential they've been in our journey. But that's a
Absolutely.
good point that you bring up. And so, no surprise that the push to improve our brand came from the CEO of Pitch. Let's move on towards the illustrations because you've spent obviously a lot of time
Yeah.
working on them. It's also something that I personally love. Like I think early stage you kind of want to optimize what you work on. You want to work on very high ROI stuff. And at least as a CEO for me, it has been something that maybe in the past I wouldn't have invested in because I would have thought, this can certainly wait. It's better to work on other things. But I feel very strongly about having good artwork as part of the site, the product experience. How did you approach, you know, building it at first and then maybe changing it for the new design? What's your process?
I definitely I have to give credit to Overnice and to Overnice's designer who spent a fair amount of time just with me working on the ideas and on the style directions and just discussing what would be the best match for the new website. And I remember as we were talking and discussing ideas, I told him that my main inspiration is the New Yorker style. So you have, I mean, from just a very personal point of view, I come from a very traditional art kind of background. I went to art school, I did oil painting. I mean, I pretty much done every possible kind of painting you can think. And the brush and pencils until I got iPad were pretty much my main tools. So for me, I must admit that to have that little hint of the traditional techniques is very important. So I remember showing him different ideas and different examples of the New Yorker style, and we both decided, yeah, this is it, because first it has that, I would say, retro vintage vibe, but it's just a hint of it. But I think what we liked the most was that every illustration you see conveys some sort of story. And we decided that including illustrations on Magic Bell, we do want to tell a story. And then we both decided, I mean, let's just introduce a group of characters doing things, working with notifications, working with the inbox. And I think that's something that both matches the playfulness of Magic Bell, but also is very straightforward. I mean, as much as you, as a designer or an illustrator, you might want to go over the top with your ego and with all the ideas you have, what is really important is to send a straight message. And I really hope that with what we worked on, we managed to do so.
Absolutely. I think I remember having many discussions and sort of talking about how we want more timelessness than sort of the latest trend. One, because I think we personally like that, but then second, also as a startup, you really don't want to have to update your brand every year or so. I'm sure
Absolutely.
there'll be another iteration of it, but maybe several years down the line, I hope. And so even the colors that we picked, which is like a really beautiful shade of blue and yellow, and the illustrations, they are all sort of, like you said, it's vintage. To me, it's more timeless. Also, I think I certainly like, I'm very passionate about, LGBTQ and just inclusivity. And so I'm excited that our characters are sort of very, gender neutral or non-binary, or, they, you can't really fit them into a category. And as a team, as a CEO, I felt it's a certain kind of like brand personality that I think our team feels very comfortable wearing, because you are actually wearing it. Like the lesser disconnect there is between your communication, your team, your how you interact with other people, and your visual brand, I think the better it is, right?
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
it's true probably for the best companies. Like Airbnb has that CEO's personality of being very outgoing and just very open. I think Stripe is very much like Patrick Collison and his brother. So I think the founding team really carries the brand forward. So this is very much who we are as a
I,
team, like
Absolutely.
diverse.
This is it's good that you pointed it out, because somehow I forgot to mention that one of the key points when designing the illustration, at least for me, was to make sure that the characters, they are gender fluid. I made sure that, except the hairstyles, that you can either say that it's a female
Sure.
or a masculine hairstyle. I made sure that they don't really look like any gender, and I like this idea. I like that you look at them and you don't really know, because that's how it should be.
Yeah, that's how it is actually. I think it's just so I'm glad that we are carrying that forward, and I hope that that's something that can not just live in our company, but grow over time, and not just in terms of the gender, but also in terms of just in every other sort of dimension we can become more inclusive. It's certainly not easy. I think even working with people from different cultures is actually not easy. But again, like I said, like this brand is sort of aspirational for me. So we've created something that, and I think Tim Cook said that he's like, somebody asked him like, how do you really keep up? And he says Apple is like so aspirational that nobody can really be it all the time. And so I think about that a lot. For us, the content we are putting out in terms of our values or how we work, or a lot of it is obviously what we do, but some of it is aspirational too. So for me, these characters, the way they interact with, go about their daily lives, is sort of very aspirational. I want to create that kind of experience. So it's exciting.
I just wanted to add that obviously the copy is part of the brand as well, and we work on since we are such a small team, and obviously we don't hire any agency to do our copy for us. It's your work and our product manager Dan, and I love how every now and then whatever you come up with it's so playful, and at the same time it's very bold, because it doesn't really fit those very tight brackets of a very serious SaaS company that has to be, like just very, very strict and very, I really like that about Magic Bell. That even the announcement I'm going to post today, in literally an hour from now, I'm very excited that it actually says Yoo-hoo, a new website, right? I mean, you will see. I hope, I hope we can.
I'm sure, yeah.
I hope we manage to keep this vibe. I mean, we obviously very professional, and we want to be seen as extremely professional and very dedicated people to our work. But that hint of playfulness, I think, is very important to all of us.
Yeah, and I think it will, because now we are like 5 people team. We have a few other people working part-time, and it just seems like that's sort of the personality that's coming in. Some people are more so, some are less so, but and like you said, the website copy, it's Dan, it's me, some of it, the older copy from Jane, who's worked with us, some from Overnice. So at this point, it's almost like this sort of like potpourri of sense of humor and the way we present ourselves. But you bring up a really good point, which is like naming things, naming features, naming characters, the words we use to describe our brand. For us, like the word magical is actually extremely important, right? Like that's why it's the name of this podcast. It's again very aspirational. That is something I definitely didn't pay attention to in my last startups beyond the name of the company. But I think it's actually extremely important to pay attention to what you call things, because names stick in people's mind.
Absolutely. I remember you telling me not so long ago that eventually we want to get to a point when people want to get Magic Bell. They don't want to get a notification system or an inbox or center. They want to put Magic Bell on their product. And I strongly believe that we can manage. We're building an amazing foundation, and I think I'm really looking forward to that moment when someone approaches us through an email or whatever message and tell us, you know what, I want Magic Bell in my product. So let's hope for that.
Absolutely, yeah. So what's next for us? I mean, this is a fun, exciting launch. We feel very happy with where we have come. I have been actually just looking at that website for days now, just browsing and
Same.
scrolling. What's next? I mean, that's probably my second last bit. But what do you think is next for us?
That's an interesting question. I'm going to be honest. I think I still feel a bit hazy in terms of I've put a lot of work, both mental and a little bit of emotional, into creating what we have created. And well, the website has been live for not even a week, I think, and we will officially announce it today. And I feel now it's time to take a deep breath and think things through. There's also this, we've been discussing it, there's also this aspect of deciding on a very, very consistent brand identity we want to be using from now on. And we're still having some doubts and conversation about the colors and the type and the typeface. And I feel next week is really the time when I have to, as the designer, I have to make the final decision. And I really feel I want to stick with the deep blue and the yellow color palette, and it just really feels so timeless, and it builds such a great foundation for what we want to do. So unfortunately, I'm afraid I don't know how to answer your question, because I need a few days to take a deep breath and start
It's like
thinking of the. Go on, sorry.
Sorry, I got excited. It's like the brand is like a young baby right now, and you just want to
Absolutely,
make sure that the
absolutely.
baby can fly. Wow, I think I didn't realize how much emotional investment you had put into it until this moment, which, yeah, makes sense now.
Honestly, I mean, I wanted to come up with a new illustration style. So, I mean, I really wouldn't like to sound like it kept me awake at nights, but it actually did sometimes, because I wanted to create something really unique. And the style I was using before on our blog posts, it fit the previous website, but there was no way I could see it on the new website. So yeah, I guess for me it's sort of like a catharsis moment. Okay, it's live. It's out there. I've created a whole set of new blog illustrations as well this last week, and okay, so what's next? And that's
I think
very
a breather
exciting.
makes sense. Yeah, a
Yeah.
breather makes sense. And yeah, that's just my nature. Like the minute anything closes, I'm like, okay, what's next?
Yeah,
And I should probably
absolutely.
take a few more moments to appreciate it. And that's a good point. So we'll leave that question open ended for now. And what would your advice be to somebody approaching this? Maybe also, if at all, like approaching this on a bit of a budget or time constraint, looking back, what would you like if you had to do this ever again for another startup? How would you approach it?
I think what I appreciated a lot about working with Overnice was these initial interviews about when we wanted to establish what our identity is, because when you looking back, that really built and set the foundation for what we have now. And I remember thinking, oh, maybe this is a bit too much. Like, this seems a little bit over the top. I mean, do we really need to spend? I thought exactly what you did. Do we really need to spend like 2 afternoons for like 2 hour long Zoom calls discussing all these aspects? And I'm a designer, right? So I should be I should be no doubting that at all. And I remember thinking, well, we'll see how this works. But I'm very glad that it happened. So if there's any advice I would have is to definitely spare this time at the very beginning to make sure that everyone agrees on the same direction. Because I remember us as well. We had this, are we going for a more playful, designy kind of website, or do we want to create something more SaaS looking and with the gradients and the very like generic fonts? So how do we want to approach our customers? And this is very important, because once the designers start the work, I mean, you really don't want to tell someone halfway through, you know what, no, we changed our time, because you waste your own time this way, obviously.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think like if I had any advice, at least for CEOs who are developers or teams that are very dev heavy, I would say pick the design that feels slightly uncomfortable to you as a developer, because that's what, like, I remember when we picked the design, it was a little bit more artsy than I would have picked just on my own. So I just knew that in a few months I would start liking that look, and I did actually. So yeah, don't play it safe because that's not why you're doing this probably. And yeah, it's a fun process. I would love to hear other people's story as well about it. And
Absolutely.
thank you so much for your
Thank you.
time.
It's been a
And
pleasure.
thanks for listening in. Bye bye.
Bye bye.